Hello, I'm Sharon Ross with CCAI, now in its 18th season in Carson City. We're delighted to present Chris Orr, our 71st talk in our ongoing Nevada Neighbors series. Chris is a host of PBS Reno's Wild Nevada show. She gives us her rules of the road, things she's learned while filming 5 seasons of Wild Nevada. This production is funded by Nevada Humanities. CCAI has more online Nevada Neighbors talks linked on our website, ccainv.org. Enjoy.
I'm Dave Santina.
And I'm Chris Orr, and this time on Wild Nevada, we're exploring in and around the state capitol.
Carson City offers the Nevada history, some fascinating stories, and as you can see behind us, some impressive views.
That's coming up right now on Wild Nevada. Hi, I'm Chris Orr, and I am one of the hosts of the PBS Reno program called Wild Nevada. It's a travel adventure series that has been seen not only in the local market here in the Reno, Sparks, Carson, Northern Nevada, North Central California, down into Southern Nevada, but it's also been seen across the country. In fact, we've aired in something like 40 some states and have been distributed through the PBS video app, which means that we can be seen around the world. And we have produced 5 seasons. We've got another season in production right now, or beginning stages of production. We've got some specials that we're working on. About 60 some episodes, closer to 70, I think, actually in the can. And I think I've been in all of them except for one. So it is been a really interesting project that I've gotten to work on because I'm on staff at PBS Reno. It used to be called KNPB Channel 5. Now we are PBS Reno. And I've learned a lot in those 20 years of production. 20 years, hard to believe, but it's been that long. And the 70 some episodes, or almost 70 episodes that I've been on. And so what I want to share with you are really some of the life lessons that I've learned working on Wild Nevada. Because, you know, so often we're asked, what is our favorite Wild Nevada adventure? Or what is the best part of Wild Nevada? And the truth of it is, after 60, 70 episodes and trips, it's hard to come up with just one. So instead, I've developed what I think are kind of life lessons that I've learned overall. So let's get started. And with that, I think I'm going to start with my first one, which is personalize your adventure. Simon has me open the jump door. The sudden rush of wind whips at me, and I find myself staring at the ground 15,000 feet below. It finally hits me that I'm actually about to jump. I want to say to Simon, come on and let's just get this over with. But before I can, he pitches us out of the plane and into our free fall. And then the only thing I can think of is screaming.
We're going to be starting at about our hike here at about 11,400 to 11,200. We're going to climb up to 11,650, and that shows it here on this big peak. We're going to drop down, go through these saddles, and that's this small one here. Then we're going to climb this really big one. This is the biggest one. This is Pyramid Peak, 11,775. And we're going to drop down, and we're going to climb back up to this next one, which is 11,772 feet. So we're going to gain back everything we just lost. So this is going to be hard on our knees, and it's going to be hard on our lungs, and then we'll be there.
This is the part I'm worried about right there.
Three, 2, 1, see ya!
Look at this. What a fun way to sightsee. The ride is really smooth, and we get to enjoy 360 degrees of scenery from a point of view we'd never normally get.
Awesome.
Alvin has decades of caving experience, so we feel safe in his hands. He emphasizes that no one should attempt to explore a cave without an experienced guide and proper equipment. Climbing on location is a very different experience than scaling the wall in a climbing gym. Instead of exercising skills in a controlled environment, here a climber contends with both the rock and the elements. In addition, rather than the easily seen fixtures of a climbing wall, I'm facing a seemingly sheer wall of sandstone. But the faint white dusting of climbing chalk on the surface of the rock is both guide and encouragement. It helps point me toward the holds that the earlier climbers found and used.
You want to keep your arms in and you want to just use your feet and feel that balance. Try to keep your hips in and your chest away.
Part of the challenge of rock climbing is locating the holds, cracks, and crannies in the rock that will support your ascent. What appears to be an impossibly small groove or flaw in the surface can be a surprisingly stable place to balance a hand or a shoe, and in some cases just a fingertip or a toe or two.
So when you think about adventure, I think you probably think of a lot of the things that you see in that video. First of all, I have to explain, I'm afraid of heights. I'm claustrophobic. I'm not good with anything involving extreme sports. And yet what I've learned in Wild Nevada is that if you embrace adventure, you can do it. And for me, actually, when I think about adventure on Wild Nevada, my work on the show itself is the biggest adventure. When the project first started 20-some years ago, the idea was being floated around of doing this travel adventure show. And I had just been hired as a web designer for the TV station. And I'm not a native Nevadan, but I love this state. And I had already graduated from college here, and I knew that I really wanted to learn more about the state that I was calling home. And I grew up actually up in rural Idaho with a family that if you saw a dirt road and you didn't know where it went, you drove down it and you found out where it went. And you saw a mountain, you hiked it, and we camped for vacations and all of those things. So when the idea of a travel adventure program running around Nevada and exploring Nevada came up, I wanted to be involved. So I asked to be a researcher. I asked them to teach me how to run audio. I just wanted to work on the show. And I was told that they had a position for me that they were considering, and they would, discuss it with me. It turned out they wanted me on camera. I was horrified. And it took them about 2 weeks to talk me into it. And yet I never regretted the decision to take that big leap and try it and really embrace the adventure and get over my fear of being on camera. As a person who's really an introvert and kind of shy, it's not natural, but at the same time, it ended up being one of the best experiences of my life. And every time we go out on production, it is still one of the best experiences I've ever had. And part of why I say that you really have to personalize your sense of adventure is that adventure is subjective. In many ways, it can be jumping out of a plane or hiking a cliff trail that you've never been on before. It doesn't have to be dangerous. It can just be different. And the reason why adventure is so important is I think it wakes us up. I think it stimulates us. It encourages us to try something new. I have a really good friend who, when we go out to dinner, always has to order something new on a menu. Even if he's been at that restaurant before, it has to be something he's never eaten before. And because for him, dining out should be an adventure. An adventure. For me, I like going to the same restaurants and eating the same things. I'm a very routine kind of person, but for him, dining out's an adventure. And so truly, adventure is something that should be personal, can be made personal. And I think that when you allow opportunities for adventure, again, it wakes you up, it gives you inspiration, and it makes that little bit of adrenaline rush that you need to embrace things differently. Another great example of even how small an adventure can be is my dog loves her morning walk. And yet when we go out for her walk, she always expects to go on the same walk. And we head out the door and she always goes the same direction around the block. Every once in a while, I like to reverse it and take her up the block instead of down the block. For her, it's a grand adventure and it sets her whole day as something new and different. And again, adventure can be totally personal. If you want to jump out of a plane, I can tell you it's terrifying, but it's a lot of fun. If you want to go climbing, absolutely give it a shot. Just make sure you do it safely and with a trained guide. But if you just want to try something new, cook something new, volunteer somewhere, embrace the idea that you can push your limits and you can find great adventures of your own. So my next life lesson from Wild Nevada is cultivate your ability to ad-lib. So the reason why this is one of the things that I have learned from Wild Nevada is the fact that Wild Nevada is probably, if you've ever seen the show, which again, you can find on PBS Reno or pbsreno.org or the PBS video app, got to give the commercial, right? If you ever watch the show, what is kind of fun to tell people is that 90% of that show is unscripted. We go out and we have more or less a schedule that we know we're going to follow. We know where we're going. We know where we're going to end that day on the road trip, but we don't necessarily know what's going to happen. Most of the guests and the guides that we have on the show, we've never met until we meet them on camera. Maybe 5 minutes before the camera, we'll do a first round of introductions, set up the cameras, and then we go. But we really do everything on the fly, ad-libbing as we go. And I think that's part of why when we say that we're out having an adventure and we're really doing this in real time, that is how you have an adventure. You cannot script necessarily everything. And it's important to embrace that and know that you can ad-lib. And I think as we have been experiencing so many changes in our country, in our society, all around us, in our families, we've learned through the pandemic and we've learned through the last couple of years that it's really important to not only know how to ad-lib, but to be okay doing so, because you can't always predict what's going to happen. So absolutely embrace your ability to ad-lib, to be able to accept that sometimes you're going to crash on a bike or sometimes you're not going to say exactly the right thing, or sometimes you're going to have a gnat fly in front of your face when you're out hiking, whatever it is. But it is a way to be real, and it is a way to be present. Because if you're truly having an adventure, if you're truly having an experience, you need to be present in that moment and really enjoy it. So I would say embrace your sense of adventure. And while doing so, of course, cultivate your ability to ad-lib, because you can't always predict what's going to happen when you're having an adventure or you're trying something new.
As Dave and Mark tour Sand Mountain, I have the chance to enjoy one of the area's biggest recreational attractions, off-road motorsports. I meet Keith and his son Jeff in their camp at the base of Sand Mountain. They're both motorsports enthusiasts and are eager to share the fun.
You'll be taking a shower tonight, sand will be coming out of your ears.
Like any extreme sport, safety is a priority. Keith helps me into the proper gear and the Sandrail safety harness before we head out.
You like speed, huh?
Oh, yeah.
This is that shoe tree you were telling me about.
Yeah, the tradition has it that a newlywed couple were camping here, and they got in an argument about how much money the bride had lost in Reno. And she said she was walking home, and he said she was going to do it barefoot and threw her shoes in the tree. And ever since then, people have been adding to it, taking shoes if they needed them, leaving them. It's kind of rite of passage on Highway 50.
Wow, and now they're still doing it. Oh, I brought some shoes that I could chuck. I thought we might come to the shoe tree, so we'll get them out and we'll throw some in ourselves.
I don't know, those limbs are kind of high. I don't know.
They look better than they did last night when I put them together. All right, shoe away. Oh, straight up. Oh, another one straight up.
Okay, so the lesson learned here is it's not as easy to add shoes to the shoe tree as it appears.
It's a myth. The shoe tree is a myth. It doesn't work. It's totally false.
It worked for me.
Okay, the shoe tree likes women.
Hey! Yay!
You rub it in. Comes down here.
I made it. My shoe is in the tree. Give up, Dave. Come on, it's time to go.
I want to find my shoes. I didn't get them in the tree.
You didn't make the shoe tree. Come on, we got somewhere to be.
Part of why I picked those two clips as an example of ad-libbing is they're from our very first episode, and they really set the pace for the series, because in that moment when we went to Sand Mountain and I went and asked that gentleman for a ride on the sand dune, we had never met him before. And we didn't even know his name as I rode off with him. Not exactly a smart example of how to do something safely, but again, we were going in the moment, we were ad-libbing, we were figuring out what would make for a good show and a good road trip and a good adventure. And then when we were at the shoe tree, that is a story that we could not have scripted. Dave had brought several pairs of shoes. He knew that we were going to the shoe tree. I don't even think I knew what the shoe tree was. And he couldn't get his shoes in the tree. And sometimes that sense of ad-libbing and just being able to enjoy the moment really makes the real moment not only enjoyable, but all the more fun. You can't script that kind of enjoyment. And I really did get my shoe in the first time after he tried and tried and tried. Again, that first show told us ad-libbing was okay, and we learned very quickly that that was really what you have to do if you are going to enjoy your adventure. And that brings me to my next life lesson, which is embrace your authenticity.
As we begin our ride, Gary explains the simple commands that allow us to communicate with our camels.
It's clear that we've quickly mastered these commands by the way we exhibit total control over Michael and Milagro. Walk up. Oh, is this the way it's going to be then? No, come on, up. Milagro, up, up.
Walk up, Michael. Walk up. Oh, ow.
I love that.
Michael. Michael. Walk up, Michael. Oh. And me without a sports bra. Oh.
Come on now, walk up, keep going.
Every time they take that initial down, it's a shocker. Okay, and it's leg in front.
Push down, Milagro. There you go, all the way. Woo, good job. All right. We figured we came to an understanding by the end of the trip. How you feel?
I feel good.
You know?
Yeah.
I thought I'd be walking like John Wayne, but I feel all right. Okay, Chris made it down, so I should be able to do this, right? I've been told that experienced mountain bikers can spot a novice just by the way a person rides. I'm thinking that right about now, I'm looking like I have never been on a bike before in my life. I just want to make it down this steep drop without too much trouble. I feel a little out of control here, but hey, I made it down, so maybe I'm not such a bad rider after all. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I am. Meanwhile, I feel like I got this kayaking thing down. I mean, the water's doing most of the work anyway. I just got to steer a little bit. And what was the one thing Randy said we got to look out for? Overhanging something? Oh, right. That's what I get for not paying attention. I deserved it.
I got into a bush, and it was just all on me, and I realized as I leaned to get out of the way that I've gone too far, and I went over.
Thanks for letting us stop for a second so I can dry off a little bit. I'm a little soggy, but you know what? I consider that a public service. So remember, don't get happy. When you think you got it figured out, you might not. So I learned my lesson.
Authenticity is really important. I think not only in today's world, but it's always been really important. And I think part of the success of Wild Nevada, why people are willing to watch the shows again and again and again, and why people support the shows. We are a nonprofit as a PBS station, and the shows are only made because people support them. Local individuals, local companies, local foundations have been willing to not only support, but produce them with us by giving us the funds we need to be able to be out on the road and make them. And all of it is about the fact that they like the authenticity of what we're doing. We go out, we show the beauty of this state, we show the beauty of being able to enjoy the landscape and the history and the adventures that Nevada gives. And part of, I think, our recipe of success for the program is that Dave and I, my co-host, we are just every person going out on a road trip. We are everybody going out and enjoying that adventure. We're doing it in real time. You travel along with us. We're not experts. We never pretend to be experts. That's why we have guests and guides, and it has been a really successful recipe for us. But I think the recipe of success is authenticity, the truth of it. We show us sometimes making our blunders, having our bloopers, not being able to climb to the top of the mountain, or not necessarily being able to navigate every challenge. We had an episode in season 4 where we hadn't been in production for a long time, and Dave, my co-host, had to opt out of a hike because he was starting to feel fatigued and he couldn't get to the top of the mountain. And it was a really important thing to show our viewers because I'm a very experienced hiker, but I've had that moment where I've pushed myself past my limit. And not only do we want to show how amazing the state is and that it's great to go out and have these adventures, but we want to show that you need to consider the factors involved, the safety factors. Most of our shows, we talk about what it takes to explore the areas that we go into safely. Sometimes it's an off-road vehicle. Sometimes it's extra water. Sometimes it's making sure that people know where you're at because there are very remote locations in the state. And I do think that that authenticity of not just pretending like we're hardcore, that we're experts, it's part of what makes us relatable, and it makes it real life. And I think that that is really important in all aspects of life. And in fact, that's why I've come up with those 3 lessons of wild Nevada. Embrace a personal sense of adventure, cultivate your ability to ad-lib, and embrace your authenticity. Because a sense of adventure is what is going to give you the opportunity to try something new. And trying something new is going to not only allow you the chance to embrace your creativity and get inspired, but it's also gonna let you test your limits. Then two, if you cultivate your ability of ad-lib, you can be present. You can really live that adventure and you can go with it, basically. I mean, because that's part of what ad-libbing is. It is, instead of having a script and reading off a script, you know, it is sitting and having a conversation and knowing and trusting your ability to have a conversation, to really do something and speak from the heart. And then two, if you embrace your authenticity, if you present your real you, if you are really in that moment and you present your real self, it makes life and your work so much more relatable. So those are my three there, right there, being authentic and messing up where, you know, sometimes you will. So in that, I do want to share one more video montage. And this one is because the side note, or the fourth rule, is be able to laugh at yourself.
That's cool when you got.
I need to. Okay.
Just stay right next to.
So, should we maybe take a look around?
Sounds good.
Hi, I'm Barbara Orr.
I'm Steve Miklas.
And I'm Chris's daughter.
I just
No,
would.
you're my daughter.
You're, oh.
She said she's my daughter.
I just.
So make of that what you will.
From Wild Nevada.